we planned a lot of it out prior because the whole point of the show is going off the map.
Holly Marie Combs recently appeared on her charmed co-star Shannen Doherty's podcast. In the second segment of the podcast labeled Let's Be Clear, Combs told Doherty that she never wanted to be in the supernatural drama without Doherty, who wound up leaving the WB series in 2001 after its third season due to much tension with other co-stars. The tension between co-stars was one to span over 2 decades before apologies were made about the situations that took place between season 2 and 3 of the beloved witch drama show. Combs continues the interview as she talks about the issues she and Doherty had with Alyssa Milano and Brian Krause that popped up at the end of that third season. Combs goes on to talk about how their former co-star on Charmed, Brian Krause, finally apologized for what she endured on the set of the drama show. Combs says, Brian and she, Alyssa, were dating at the time when all this went down, which to me, us, being completely oblivious, to me was the worst part, where it was all sort of part of this plan that was happening and unfolding over months. She then states it was months of that year. On Charmed, Doherty, Combs, and Milano played sisters who were also witches. Krause played Leo Wyatt, the sister's guardian angel for the duration of the series' run on the WB. The series ran for 8 seasons between 1998 and 2006. Combs recalls the recent event with Krause stating, it was about a year ago in France. We were on stage at a panel that was filled with many, many people, and he just kind of paused, she said on the podcast. As her voice quivered, he looked at me like he forgot something, and I kind of looked at him like, what? What's the problem? Why are you looking at me like that? And he just looked at me while someone was asking a question and just went, I'm so sorry. Combs said she was taken aback and confused, replying, and I was like, sorry for what? I was like, are you going somewhere? What's happening? She said. He just shook his head and he goes, I'm so sorry. Because we had talked a little about it on stage without talking about it. Because still, no one was allowed to talk about it. Combs said Krause apologized again after they left the panel. And we got off stage and he just looked at me and said, I'm so sorry. That must have been a terrible time for you, she said. Though the tension on set was never fully dealt with, let alone talked about, it weighed down Combs and Doherty for many years. Their own relationship took a hit because of the actions and possibly false statements made by their co-stars. I mean, it took him like 24 years, but better late than never, Doherty said. Better late than never, agreed Combs. Along with the drama with Brian and Alyssa's dating life, there followed the termination of Holly's friend and co-star Shannen, and Holly Marie Combs is setting the record straight on the 24-year-old feud. Combs alleged on the podcast that it was Milano who demanded Doherty be fired, recalling these prior conversations she had with the director. Combs said she requested a meeting with the show's producer Jonathan Levin during the series' run to find out why Doherty left the series. Combs recalled much of the conversation she had with Levin all those years ago, recently with Doherty on the podcast. We were told by Alyssa it's her or Shannen, and Alyssa had threatened to sue us for a hostile workplace environment. He said, we didn't mean to, but we've been backed into this corner. We're basically in a position where it's one or the other, referring to an ultimatum given by Milano. The producer of Charmed, Jonathan Levin, continued, we were told by Alyssa that it's Shannen or me, and Alyssa has threatened to sue us for a hostile workplace environment, which because she went to the therapist or the mediator or the corporate mediator, whatever the heck his title is, she built a case for herself where she was documenting every time she felt uncomfortable on the set, and for whatever reason, whereas you and I refused to speak to him. So that's where the deck was stacked. Reps for Milano did not immediately respond to EW's request for comment. Doherty at the time wanted to clarify the narrative around her exit from the show, stating, I don't think that there's anybody in their right mind that would quit a hit show that's paying them a good amount of money that they actually really enjoy working on, which was my deal. Like, I enjoyed it, she said. I remember my representatives looking at me at the time and said, no, your career won't survive another firing. So we're just going to say that you chose to leave. And remember, I started laughing, going, who is going to believe that I'm crazy enough to leave a hit show? Combs said that she felt blindsided by the news, recalling no harsh words or brawls on the set of the Supernatural series, where she played Piper Halliwell. She couldn't recall a time on or off set where anyone was mean or hostile toward one another, and like Doherty, she became confused on the current situation and why Alyssa had fought so hard to have Doherty removed from the show. Doherty also struggled to recall any source of tension that would have irritated Milano. I lived a year after that, sort of replaying everything in my brain and really trying to find those moments. I couldn't find them. We never had it out, not privately or publicly. Shannen also stated, I remember an episode I directed where she did something on the Christmas break, she added, and they asked me to work around some things with her, and I had no problem with it. I couldn't have been more kind and understanding. Holly and Shannen recalled how Milano and her mother attempted to split them up on the Charmed set. It was really interesting of her trying to pull you away from me, Doherty said. Their efforts went so far that they allegedly tried to prevent Doherty from seeing Combs in the hospital after she had surgery. Alyssa and her mom were blocking people from seeing you, and at the time, you didn't know. I remember you texted me, dude, are you going to come and see me? Doherty, who was battling cancer, said it's all had an effect on her over the years. As you get older, you accept that a situation happened. Acceptance and moving on with your life does not equate to forgiveness, she said. You just learn a lesson and look at somebody differently and move on. CNN has reached out to representatives for Combs, Doherty, and Milano for comment. Milano has previously described a different approach to their work on Charmed between her and Doherty. I think it's hard when you put two very different people together, she told Entertainment Weekly after Doherty left the show in 2001. I'm very laid back and passive. I have my Buddha. I come in here and meditate. Doherty's got a lot of energy. She's very headstrong. She wants to get the job done. Milano told Andy Cohen in 2013 they had some rough days on set, comparing it to high school, but said she was unclear what led to Doherty's departure from the show. We never really found out what happened, Milano states in the interview. In the first part of the podcast, Doherty alleged that Milano and her family contributed to a weird divide between her and Combs, which continued throughout the second season of the show, causing a rift between her and Combs that was unexpected and unwanted. Doherty said, I think I cried every single night. Not only did Holly suffer from the loss of her friend,
All that matters is that you treat every day as a blessing and as a gift.
but she was forced to stay on the show even after Doherty was forced to leave. She wanted to quit, feeling lost without Doherty and not sure what the show was for anymore as the sake of sisterhood. The core meaning of the show seemed void with the current situations. Like Brian, Alyssa says that she has made amends with her co-stars. In a 2021 interview with Entertainment Tonight, Milano acknowledged how her competitiveness affected relationships with her castmates. You know, I could take responsibility for a lot of our tension that we had, Milano told Entertainment Tonight. I think a lot of our struggle came from feeling that I was in competition rather than it being that sisterhood that the show was so much about, and I have some guilt about my part in that. Although 8 years prior, Milano stated she didn't know why Doherty was let go, it is obvious there may be more to the story. A show that was meant to be about sisterhood slowly took a turn after the first season, leaving Holly to make some very tough decisions. After Doherty was let go, she had no choice but to stay on the show, but things were different moving forward. She had tension with Brian and Alyssa dating, and then the loss of her friend. In a way, her whole world was turned upside down. The drama that was started all those years ago played a role in each other's lives, even their lives over the years, as the rift formed between friends, and Holly was left with many unanswered questions and didn't know the truth about everything that had taken place. She didn't realize how deep the situation was going. Not having a real family of her own growing up, it was intoxicating when Alyssa and her family came along and all but wanted to adopt Holly. They craved that family lifestyle, and knowing someone wanted you as a part of theirs only made things more strenuous, as Alyssa seemed to use this to her advantage. When the time came for Holly's surgery, she didn't even realize Milano and her family were not only keeping Doherty from seeing her, but others as well, in a way to, I suppose, keep Holly to themselves. Being young and one of the main female leads in a huge upcoming drama show alone was enough to put the blinders on. So, when tensions became high and Doherty left the show, Combs had no choice but to ask why. But now, years later, as grown adults, everyone has finally made their peace with all the drama that took place on the show and are able to move beyond it, and old scars can finally begin to heal, but they will never be forgotten. It may have taken years, but like Holly and Shannen stated, better late than never.